Hello, everybody. My name is Thomas Cameron. Um, I'm the Chief Architect for the Western region of the United States, and today we are going to be talking about selling to the CIO. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my desktop. If you have a problem viewing the presentation, please chime in and let me know. All right. So can you see the desktop all right?
Yeah.
All right, outstanding. Okay, so this is actually a draft presentation of a session that I've been working on with our our marketing department at corporate in Westford and in Raleigh. So what I'm going to be talking to you about today is how technical sales are different when you're talking to somebody at the C level. The reason this is important is you really only get one shot generally to get to the executive level with our customers from a technical sales perspective. And so, you and your account team have probably been working for a very, very long time to get this meeting. And the reality is you literally have minutes to either make or break the relationship with the CIO from a Red Hat perspective. And as the technical advocate, you're really going to be kind of on the spot. If you blow it, it's going to take a whole lot to recover from that. So we're going to talk about some of the concerns that CIOs have, some of the common problems that we as technical sales members commit or do when we're dealing with executives, and hopefully how to avoid making those mistakes and how to make the sales session very successful. So let's talk about why it's important to make connections with CIOs. If you look here, Red Hat has been doing a whole lot of analysis with the Harvard Business Review, Harvard being a very well-respected business school in the United States. And what we found is from the perspective of being able to make decisions, strategic decisions that are going to affect the entire organization, surprisingly, if you look in the left-hand column, even folks who are executive vice presidents of sales or procurement or human resources, even folks who are IT architect strategists, have a fairly low, what we call index score, which is basically an ability to drive technical direction from a strategic standpoint with our large companies. In the middle, you've got folks who are still executive vice presidents or vice presidents, chief marketing officers, chief financial officers, vice presidents of IT infrastructure operations, folks like that, who, while they have more influence, they still are not the primary decision makers. Over on the right-hand side, interestingly, the COO, even the CEO of a company typically does not have as much influence on purchasing IT resources than the CIO. So you can see with a score of 93, the CIO is the single most powerful or the single most authoritative person inside of an enterprise customer for making purchases. So we definitely need to be able to get to the CIO if at all possible. Now, I know that historically we've been taught that you start low, you start talking to sysadmins, or you start talking to application developers, or you start talking to storage folks, and you work your way up, and you work your way up, and you work your way up. I would argue that that may not be the best strategy. I think that trying to work your way up to the CIO is probably going to be a very, very difficult task. It's probably going to take a very long time. So in my opinion, I think that the worst thing that's going to happen if you try to sell high or try to get into visit a CIO and that CIO doesn't want to take your meeting, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to deflect you to go talk to somebody who reports to them. So at the very least, you're going to be talking to somebody who has the ear of the CIO or is someone who is talking to the CIO. So I think that's very important. The problem is, based on analysis that we've done in working with focus groups, talking to executives, when we asked CIOs, when you think of enterprise infrastructure software companies, what companies come to mind? Only 1% thought of Red Hat. That's a huge problem, especially when you consider that when we specifically asked if they were familiar with Red Hat, 43% said yes. So we've got great exposure. In other words, our name is well known among CIOs, but only 1 out of 100 think of us as a strategic software company. And that is a big problem. Gartner, which is a big software analyst or analysis company, is a source to which executives will generally go to find out about software companies. We are one of only, I think, 33 companies that Gartner considers to be a complex vendor. And by complex, they don't mean hard to use. They mean we have a very rich and very broad portfolio of technology. So the fact that there are only 33 of them that Gartner does analysis on speaks volumes to the level of work and the amount of technology that we have to sell. So it's a very, very big problem that only 1% of these executives think of Red Hat when they think of enterprise technology companies. So let's talk about what CIOs are. If you look in their job functions, really the CIO's job is to align IT initiatives with business goals, to try to make IT run more smoothly, improving IT operations and performance and risk management, implementing new systems, new architectures. And then the CIO is responsible for maintaining IT business relationships with vendors, with other folks in their space. So, CIOs who work in manufacturing work with other CIOs who work in manufacturing. And of course, controlling costs. When we asked CIOs what their biggest pain points were, the number one pain point was providing security. Security is a huge issue. There have been a number of very highly publicized breaches all over the world, and no CIO wants to have that happen in their environment. So providing security, but also focusing on efficiency and mobility, innovation, and preventing downtime. The old standby, I have to do more with less resources. I have a lot of customers internally who are coming to me and asking me to provide services for them, but I'm not getting additional budget and I'm not getting additional staff. CIOs do have final control over IT budget, although in many cases that still has to go to the CIO or the CFO for final approval. The CIO is responsible for managing the teams which integrate solutions. So integration is a very, very important point that we need to be aware of when we're talking to CIOs. CIOs are being tasked with making their environment smaller, less servers doing more work. So reducing server footprint while expanding services, and ensuring many different devices operate to organization security, reliability, and compliance standard. That's talking about mobile. For the most part, that's talking about mobile, whether it's laptops or tablets or phones. Bring your own device where people provide their own phones is a huge, huge issue for CIOs from a security and operational standpoint. And then overcoming the perception gap of C-suite peers. There is, in many cases, a perception that the CIOs, while they're on the executive board, while they are executives, there's still a perception that, they're just the computer people, so they're not considered to be as strategic. So we'll talk about a hypothetical CIO here in just a second. But the main thing that we need to pay attention to is that when we're talking to CIOs, we need to help them figure out what the best solution is using open source technologies and how to present it internally to other people in their organization. Basically, we're teaching them how to sell our stuff internally. And then we also have to help them deliver more with less and to be disruptive and innovative. So the ability to do new things that are going to enable the business, that are going to see very rapid returns on investment, those are things that we need to help these CIOs with. So in order to successfully engage these folks, we have to keep 5 key insights in mind. These are things that we have discovered in doing analysis with CIOs alongside the Harvard Business Review. So number 1, CIOs do not care about technical details. They want to know what you can do to help their business be successful. That means you need to understand their business. So if you're going to go visit a company that is doing manufacturing of washing machines, You need to have done research on that business, find out what the competitive landscape looks like, find out what the problems they're facing are. In the United States, whenever a publicly traded company is selling stock, they have to report to their stockholders and they have to report to the federal government. I know that's going to be different from country to country, but in many cases, a publicly traded company is going to issue financial reports. And in those reports, they will talk about things like what our competitive threats are, what the obstacles to being successful are, what the economic landscape looks like. So it's going to be very, very important for you to look at those reports, those public reports, read the news, figure out what it is they're trying to accomplish. Don't walk in and talk about, hey, satellite server can manage up to 1,000 machines before you have to put a proxy in place. That is not what a CIO wants to hear, and they will not listen to you. So they don't understand technical details. They don't necessarily understand technical details. They want to have a vendor who's going to talk to them about the problems which are specific to their business. What on the left-hand side of the screen, what they want is, obviously, it has to be a company that's trustworthy. So the number one thing is it's got to be a company I trust. Red Hat has a good reputation. I don't think that there's ever been a case where we've done something that's been wrong, that's made the press, that's caused customers to be unhappy with us. So that part, we're already in good shape. But the number two most important thing is I want an IT vendor who understands my business. So again, I want to stress over and over again, do your research. You only have one chance when you get into see a CIO. So do your research and make sure that you understand what it is they're facing, and talk to them about how you can help them. And then, interestingly, the number three thing is substantially lowers our cost of doing business. Open source is a fantastic enabler of lowering cost of doing business because we are very price competitive, and then maintains the highest level of security is the fourth most important thing. Obviously, open source is highly secure. We typically have lower defect rates in our code, and we typically have faster response times when vulnerabilities are found. So those are good things to understand, but it's important that when you are talking to a CIO about these things, that again, you talk at a very high level, talk conceptually. One of the things that I have learned in dealing with CIOs is that even though we understand that open source is a very good thing from a security perspective because the source code is available and so many eyes are on it and there are so many organizations doing analysis, we understand that open source technology is very secure. Many CIOs do not understand that. They still have an idea about open source from 1995 or 1999 that says that it's a bunch of amateurs who are building shareware in their mother's basement. So we want to be very careful in the way that we talk about security, and I'll talk more about that in a little while. So when we've done analysis, when we've done interviews with CIOs, what they've told us is first engage them with what they care about and then go to the technology. So make sure that you communicate. If you're a manufacturer of washing machines, hey, I noticed that your competitor is doing something innovative, or I noticed that you wrote in your report that you are seeing a competitive threat from this other competitor, or supply chain issues, or whatever. So make sure that you communicate first, that you understand what their business is and what their pain is. What they've also told us is, you're confusing me. Who are you talking to, and what is your story? You're just talking about your products. Again, don't go in and talk about products right out of the gate. A comment that was made that really I think is very telling. I've never had a strategic conversation with Red Hat. It's always been about products. That's a quote from a CIO. That's bad. We need to talk about strategy, not about products. The comment from Paul, RHEL is a foundation to next generation cloud infrastructure. Who cares? I don't even understand what next generation cloud infrastructure is. I'm paying more attention to just keeping my company going than about innovation. And the comment that says that I think says the most is Red Hat comes in bottoms up with technical teams. Instead, you need to come in as business people top down. I need upper layer support from you. I need the less technical business people. So that's going to be a big challenge because when we walk in a technical sales environment, we want to be highly technical. We want to prove that we know so much about our technology. That's absolutely the wrong response in this environment in talking to CIOs. One of the lessons that we've learned from this analysis is there's only a small window of time to get a CIO's attention. If you look at the process that's outlined here, on the far left-hand side, if a customer is not feeling pain, they're not going to be interested in changing. Change is usually going to be expensive and it's going to be disruptive. So if you can convince them that change is urgent and that it needs to be made, and that you have a strategic capability of implementing that change to move to cloud computing, to move, and don't use a buzzword, oh, you have to go to cloud. You want to explain to them why cloud computing, for instance, is important, what it is about the technology suite that's going to make them more responsive and things like that. I guess the key thing is the thing that we found is nearly 2/3 of the buying decision is made before sales ever enters the conversation. In many cases, if you've gotten an audience with a CIO, they're already interested in our technology. They're already interested in our capabilities. That groundwork has already been laid. So we need to make sure that when we go in, we're staying on message and we're talking about our capabilities and our understanding of their business rather than than individual products. So we must communicate how our solutions solve business challenges and prove to CIOs why they need to adopt them now. So we need to make the business benefits clear. Talk about how adopting our solution suite is going to improve their business. Prove that the adoption of these solutions will allow CIOs to focus on not just keeping the lights on, not on maintaining, but on meeting new demands and innovating the business. There's a whole aspect of the conversation that happens before we get to the technical details. We need to be a part of that. We need to talk to them about where the industry is going, and that's why you have to understand what their industry is. And we have to speak to the CIOs in their language. We have to show them why it makes sense to move to open hybrid cloud. We also need to communicate, or we need to teach them how to communicate to other people in their executive suite, how to get that vision communicated so that they become the ones who are saying, if we transform our information technology environment, it's going to make our business more agile and it's going to make us more successful. So we have to position ourselves as a trusted partner to them that understands their challenges and has solutions to meet those challenges. We have to emphasize the focus on now. We have to make it clear that they can't just continue to spend 70 to 80% of their resources maintaining the status quo. That's dangerous and they will be left behind. We need to show them that a quick adoption will simplify their existing business and also take away lost time spent on managing existing environments. So stop just keeping the lights on and move to innovation. So the second thing that we've learned is that in the age of social media and mobile computing, and if it takes me more than 6 seconds to load a web page, I'm going to go to another company. So all of these changes, CIOs are nervous about their role, and their role is changing very quickly. So they are very nervous about what they're expected to do. They have to innovate, and they have to add new value for our end users. Sorry, somebody just pinged me. Are we having any problems? Nope. Okay. That was odd. Sorry. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. All right. So expectations for the CIO role have evolved from adapting well to change to innovating and making change. So in other words, they've got challenges around mobility. They've got challenges around big data and analytics. You may have heard the acronym SMAC. social, mobile, analytics, and cloud. These are all things that are weighing very heavily on the minds of CIO. So lots of challenges. Security is a constant problem as we have bring your own device, as we have mobile and so on. The business is expecting me to deliver agility and speed. So CIOs are having to find the right balance between disruption, because they're going to need to change the way things are happening, versus a safe level of innovation. They have to find the balance between risk, which anytime you adopt new technology and there's change, there's going to be risk, versus what is my reward. I don't want to make a big change and take a big risk if there's not going to be a large reward. And they have to find a balance between short-term work, what's going to give me a really quick return on investment, versus what are large infrastructure projects that are going to give me a more long-term reward. So when we asked CIOs, what are the expectations that are being placed on you? What do you have to do in your environment to keep your customers and folks happy? Number one was providing a high-performance IT infrastructure. Business units are expecting to have the same capabilities inside of their enterprises that they do with Amazon or with Google. The ability to use a credit card and have capacity on demand is something that they want to do internally as well. So we have to provide innovation. We have to still be secure in those environments. And the CIO is expected to drive strategic direction within the organization while keeping IT costs as low as possible. And then we follow up with mitigating downtime, being expected to deliver more with less resources, and managing demand from individual users. So the poor CIO is basically having to go and do the same thing that Amazon and Google can do, and they're not getting any more budget for it. So it's pretty tough job for the CIOs. CIOs need help in understanding how to be innovative in a valuable way. So if you look at the adoption curve, you've got most of your CIOs, or most of the CIOs that make sense for us to be talking to, are what we call the early majority. If you look in that bell curve, early adopters are typically going to be adopting technology from upstream projects, so it's not going to make a lot of sense for us to try to talk to them. But the early majority, the folks who are adopting innovative technologies, are the ones who are really the CIOs that we want to be talking to. They are expecting features, features, features. They want new technology. They want capabilities that's going to be cutting edge. They want to be able to collaborate so that they're actually seeing us as a trusted partner. And some quotes from CIOs include, CIOs must understand where technology is going and how it can be applied to generate new value. Another quote that I think is really interesting, the CIO becomes seen less as developing and deploying technology and more as a source of transformation that delivers business value, leveraging technology instead of directly delivering it. And the third quote, most business leaders view their IT department as a cost center or service provider rather than a trusted partner or peer. We need to help them change that. So we've learned that there's a struggle in meeting these new high expectations, given the existing core CIO role remains costly and time consuming. So the current role versus the ideal role of the CIO. The current one runs the IT functions and sort of business operations. That's the current role, but you'll notice that that's not the ideal role. In the current role, the second bullet point there, leads business and technology transformation as the company changes. That's where CIOs see themselves as being ideal, but that's not where they are currently. And driving technology-driven business innovation and strategies, that's almost not done at all in their current role, but that's where CIOs want to be. So these are things that CIOs want to be doing, but they're not necessarily doing it right now. So, and then over on the right-hand side, the big challenge is almost 70% of current budgets are used for just maintaining existing infrastructure. So they don't have resources and they don't have time to be innovative. So we have to help CIOs navigate this environment by being an industry expert and a partner they can rely on. And let me be clear, when I say an industry expert, I'm talking about their industry. If you are going to be talking to a customer who is in a vertical, a specific type of technology, you need to do as much research about that technology as you can. We have to be that trusted partner. We have to help them innovate. We have to help them focus less on trying to fix what already exists. they already know what exists. Talking to them about legacy technologies, legacy, just RHEL, for instance, isn't going to be something that helps them be innovative. We have to be a thought partner. We have to understand where the industry is going. And again, I'm talking about their industry, washing machines in the early example. We have to be in the know on the past, the present, and the future. We have to be the expert that they can rely on. And we have to be a trusted source of information. We have to understand, and hopefully you saw James Lobaki's and my keynote earlier on what the open hybrid cloud really means, how it ties into what they've been doing in the past, and how we can move their technology into open hybrid cloud in the future. So I hope that you will go see that video if you haven't already watched it. But we have to be able to explain to them why going to a cloud computing environment makes sense, why it makes their company more responsive, and it lets them be innovative and not spend as much time doing legacy administration. We also have to provide the tools, capabilities, and expertise necessary to collaborate and perform in a forward-looking fashion. We have to help them free up those resources to innovate. We have to help them build a toolkit that's going to provide them with the right structure and processes to make innovation a reality. Remember, they want to innovate. They want to be innovative, but 70% of their budget and 70% of their time is spent just maintaining existing systems. So we have to provide them with solutions that will simplify their existing role and amplify their new role, help them balance keeping the lights on with innovation to drive greater efficiencies. The third insight is cloud is not really an emerging technology. Cloud has already changed the game. CIOs need to adapt it adapt to it. So if you look, cloud adoption rates are exploding right now. So 2012 and 2013 numbers are right there. The cloud-based solutions are already at about 63%. So CIOs who have already adopted cloud-based solutions are already seeing significant improvements. 43% say that they've cut costs or reduced capital expenditures. 40% say that cloud has modernized their IT environment. 38% say that access to new features or ability to create new service offerings is valuable. 35% say that cloud is better for upgrades and licensing. 33% say that it's less complex. 29% say that it's able to lower their IT headcount. So in other words, the CIOs who are talking to each other have already said, yes, I see cloud as a big benefit. So the main reasons to recommend cloud over on-premise is it's potentially less complex. It's going to enable mobile computing because when you have infrastructure out in the cloud is already available to mobile devices. So people can use cloud resources from their cell phones today. So that's a big plus for CIOs. And again, if it's done right, cloud will definitely reduce cost, and cloud will give CIOs the ability to bring on new features and new services more quickly. So CIOs are definitely, even though the ones who have adopted it see benefits, they're definitely still confused and struggling with cloud adoption. So if you look on the left-hand column, the top objections to adopting cloud, 56% of CIOs still have significant security concerns. 44% are concerned about outages. You don't hear about it that much anymore, but you remember when entire regions at Amazon would go down because of identity management issues or something like that. So those are things that have stuck in CIOs' heads as if a region goes down, my entire customer-facing infrastructure could be down. 40% have concerns about integration with on-premise infrastructure. 39% have concerns about data portability. How do I get my data out into a cloud computing environment in a format that's still usable? 37% still think that the cost of ownership is too high. 36% don't understand the options and trade-offs of cloud computing. And 31% of CIOs interviewed said, my internal IT says cloud is a bad idea. So there's still a perception issue internally. On the right-hand side, though, what is now expected? The IT-related changes driven by cloud are new policies and procedures are going to have to be done. We're going to have to change existing policies and procedures. We're going to have to develop new policies for IT decision making based on cloud computing infrastructure. We're going to have to change our monitoring and management tools. Managing systems in the cloud is potentially very different from managing systems in a corporate IT environment. And reducing the number of IT staff are things that are going to be very important for folks as they move into cloud computing environment. So there are still a lot of concerns about what should I do in the cloud? What workloads do I need to maintain in my data center versus what workloads can I put out in the cloud? And how do I navigate that complexity? In many cases, and I've experienced this in numerous cases, when I finally do get in front of a CIO, they're not even sure where to start with cloud computing. They've been told one story by us, another story by Microsoft, another story by Rackspace or by Google or by Amazon. And so they're still very, very confused about what they're supposed to be doing. So, these are, again, chances for us to get in there and become trusted advisors. We have to lead with how cloud computing addresses their key pain points and follow with features and long-term benefits that rationalize the cost. So we have to make it easy to understand. Again, the presentation that James did earlier about how you take traditional workloads and move those into cloud, I think is very, very important. And every single one of us needs to memorize that and understand those arguments or explanations. So we have to make an assessment of their business. What are their patterns? What is it they're doing and how can that be mitigated? What are the pain points? It's just like when we talk to them about standard operating environments around just the operating system, we need to move that into their business process. What is it you're trying to accomplish, Mr. Customer? Tell me about your workflow. Tell me about how businesses or how orders get processed, how manufacturing happens, things like that. Find their biggest business challenges and goals, and then use that to determine what cloud features and benefits are most relevant to them and how we can get them there using Red Hat Cloud. We have to make cloud easy to adopt. One of the big challenges is that when I talk to CIOs, in many cases, cloud is so big that it's overwhelming, and they just say it's too much. I can't do it. So we need to talk to them about what their adoption strategy is going to be, and link it to short and long-term benefits of adoption, quick hits and successes versus long-term successes. We need to leverage mission critical as a competitive advantage and communicate how our expertise across multiple verticals and environments globally is going to help them. And then we need to talk to them about open hybrid cloud and how we have a full stack available for infrastructure, for middleware, for virtualization, for PaaS, for XPaaS, and so on, and how that is a differentiator. That we do have more offerings, more capabilities. Again, we don't want to talk about individual products, but we just need to be able to talk to them about how we have the entire stack from orchestration through management to applications. The fourth insight that we've gotten from this is that I need to better align my resources and their skills with the best technology solutions for our business needs. These are things that CIOs have told us that we need to work with. There's an expectation to do more with less resources, and CIOs are struggling to leverage what they have as best they can. So they struggle with a lack of appropriate resources. That's the biggest one. They don't have enough resources. They don't have enough people. They don't have enough infrastructure. They don't have enough bandwidth. Budget, timing, and business alignment are challenges as expectations rise, and there are different needs across the businesses that require new skill sets. It can be difficult to get consensus or support from the executive staff, especially in regard to signing off on expense. And right now, 50% of CIOs say that they are understaffed. So again, it falls back to I'm being asked to innovate, and I'm being asked to provide new services, and I'm already understaffed. What they've told us is they don't have knowledgeable staff. They're being tasked with very unrealistic timeframes. They don't have the resources to do the work. They have a lack of programming resources, limited budget, limited qualified employees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So big challenges to adopting new technologies, especially something that's as disruptive as cloud. So we need to communicate the ability of our solutions and subscription model to equip them with skills and make their role as a CIO easier. We need to understand, or we need to make them understand that we can help them leverage our technologies to make their jobs easier, to provide them with tools around building a more efficient infrastructure and a more agile business, and and give them more developer productivity. We need to describe how our management solutions provide tools and resources to align skill sets so that each individual can accomplish more. We need to communicate the value of the subscription model to allow CIOs to leverage expert advice through all the phases of planning, testing, deployment, maintenance, and upgrading, not just when they have a problem. So I'm going to break from the slide deck a little bit and talk about this. I had a conversation with a CIO who was talking to their VP of IT, and one of the conversations that came up was, oh yeah, we use our technical account manager with Red Hat all the time, but not in a break fix capacity. We go to the TAM to find out what's coming. We get a preview of technologies that are coming so that we can plan for them and be ready when those technologies are available in our enterprise. If we can explain to customers that having the relationship with Red Hat is not about break fix, it's not about fixing things when they've gone wrong, it's about having regular meetings to talk about emerging technologies so that they can adopt our technologies, open source technologies, as soon as they become released, to again increase developer productivity, increase business unit productivity, so that they can get more done with less without having to buy a whole bunch of new products. So we need to teach them how to delegate the handling of hardware, software, and service issues internally versus externally to us, and free up time and resources on their teams so that they can enhance that productivity. We need to teach them how to leverage partners for this, as well as we need to enable partners, which is kind of why I'm here right now, to help provide opportunities for closer alignment. And so the fifth insight is that not only am I explaining to the customer basically how to sell Red Hat, but also I need to explain open source and its benefits to my organization. One of the challenges that we have is that, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of CIOs still perceive open source the way that they did, 15 years ago. So CIOs need not only need to make the business case for Red Hat versus other well-known vendors, branding is really important. When we're talking about Red Hat to our CIOs, we're helping to build that brand. We're helping to make them understand what it is that we're capable of doing. And so we're having to overcome the fact that they think of us as a Linux company. So other industries with loyal customers, such as home improvement, sports, travel, et cetera, have fewer branded conversations than IT does. So we need to leverage the strengths that are associated with the Red Hat brand. They think of us as a good company, a reliable company. We have good solutions around around Linux. So that's good. The problem is most of that branded perception that we have is around Linux. They think of us as a one vendor solution. Yeah, they're really good about operating systems. When you start talking to them about storage, about cloud computing, things like that, they don't know of us as vendors in those spaces. So some of the quotes that you see here on the screen, I would consider them to be our primary Linux vendor. CIO is saying, I would say they need to broaden their product portfolio. We're one of only 33 companies that Gartner considers to be a complex vendor. So the challenge is that it's up to us to educate the CIO about the full breadth of our portfolio. We've also learned they need to make the business case for open source versus proprietary. Open source is still considered to be risky by CIOs. We know that that's not the case, but CIOs think of us as unsecure, undocumented, unpredictable out of the box, possibly dangerous to the company due to security threats. And this blows my mind because this is it's just factually not true. We know that we have a better response time to security threats than, say, Microsoft does, than Oracle does, that almost anyone else out there does. But for whatever reason, we have not done a good job of communicating to CIOs that open source is not risky. that it is very, very secure. On the right-hand side of this screen, the perceptions of open source as innovative versus risky. Yes, they absolutely see us as innovative. That's good. Unfortunately, they still see open source as being very risky at the CIO level. So we need to teach them that that's not the case anymore. Down at the bottom of the right-hand side, percentage of Red Hat risk conversation. In other words, when we have talks about open source, one of the highest levels of those conversations, or one of the most frequently occurring conversations, is this secure? What is the security profile going to look like? Am I going to put my company at risk if I adopt it? So those are the things that, and I'm going to go ahead and close that presentation and open it up for any questions. But those are the things that have been found in conversations with CIOs. These are things that we have found as pain points. These are things that we are definitely seeing are going to need to change if we're going to sell into the CIO. So with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions. I got 16 of you in the session. So if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and enter them into the chat box. So actually, if it looks like there are 17 of you on, all right, cool. So does anybody have any questions? Was this valuable? Did this make sense? Is there anyone even still out there? Okay. All right. Yes, I will post the slides. I'll get them to Quentin, and he'll post them. So I wish that, and this is just amongst us. I wish that we did a better job of advertising. I think that one of the big challenges is that because so often when we talk to a CIO, when we finally do make it up to a CIO, they have never heard of our cloud strategy. They have never heard of our virtualization stack. They may only be peripherally aware that JBoss is a Red Hat property now. So to me, it's very challenging that in a lot of cases, when we finally do get to the CIO, it's the first time they've heard of these things. But I think that it's really critically important that if we do get in front of the CIO, we need to make sure that that we are talking to them in their own language. We need to understand what their business is. We need to understand what the pain that they're facing is, and we need to let them know that open source is safe, that it's used in mission critical environments. Something like 60% of all stock trades that are done in the world are done on Red Hat Enterprise Linux systems. These technologies are used in military seacraft. They're used in aircraft design. They're used to track all of the flights over U.S. airspace, for instance. Oh, good, a question. About OSS being more secure, have you ever been asked about the recent OpenSSL faux pas? Yes. Yes, we've had a lot of conversations about Heartbleed and other SSL vulnerabilities. So the answer there is that's certainly not the best example of open source security. I mean, that's something that we've definitely kind of taken a black eye for. But realistically, even though that was a bad event, if you look at what's going on in the OpenSSL world, since Heartbleed, there has been an amazing amount of scrutiny put on it. And we found some more bugs. The community has actually found more bugs, which frankly is kind of painful because that means that there have been some bugs out there for a while. But the good news is that this is a great example of a community coming together and collaborating on something. Suddenly it has been revealed that yes, there is a problem with the technology that we held to be very safe. And so now the community is kind of rallied around, for varying definitions of rallied, and we're doing a lot more analysis because we have seen that there's a vulnerability. We've seen that we may have missed something. And so now there's a whole lot more focus on it. And sure enough, we're finding additional things that need to be improved. So it is a good example of us, of the rapid rate of innovation and the rapid rate of bug fixing in open source. Unfortunately, it took us taking kind of a black eye in OpenSSL. The good news is it's getting better, and it's a great example of how when something like that is exposed, the community can rally together and come up with a lot of solutions very quickly. So, any other questions? All right. So I'm not seeing any other questions, and we're coming up on, oh, there we go. Oh, some are still paranoid and want antivirus on all their Linux boxes. And to that, I say, knock yourself out. It doesn't do any good, but if you need that checkbox for your security analyst, that's fine. There are third-party antivirus software packages out there, whether they're open source like Clam Antivirus or McAfee or whomever. I used to make the argument, oh, you don't need it. But I've gotten to the point now where when somebody says we have a requirement for antivirus, I say, that's fine. Go talk to McAfee or go talk to whatever. Yeah. So, all right, guys, I'm going to give it just a few more minutes. And yeah, there are actual products. McAfee has a Linux version of their antivirus. I think Kaspersky has their version of antivirus for Linux. So there are definitely products out there for antivirus on Linux. Red Hat doesn't have any of them, but I certainly would not at all try to talk someone out of it. If it makes them feel more secure and it makes them feel like they are getting a good solution, then I would say more power to them. All right, I'm going to stop screen sharing. I think that that's about it. If anyone else has any other questions, don't hesitate to ask. We've only got about four or 5 minutes left. And with that, I will say thank you very much for attending today. I appreciate it. It's a big honor to me to be here. So thank you very much. And if anybody has any additional questions, you can reach me. I'm thomas@redhat.com, and I'm Choirboy on IRC. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it.